Welcome into the Europa League match day 2 with the real underscore G Warner. This is betting the pitch, the European soccer edition. We'll be going live, or we are live on YouTube. I think Twitter has officially just made it so you have to pay for an account, and I don't really want to contribute any money to Elon Musk at this point, so we'll not be doing that. But am live, just posted the link to the YouTube. So I'll wait a second and try to delay starting this. Just kidding. I have some things to plug. We have an NFL podcast out there with _Schnicker. Also, a baseball podcast I was trying to do for the playoffs to bring that back, but I'm still recording with pregame.com. Of course, college football's out there on that same uh, dream preview, or I guess more of the straight out of Vegas AM feed through pregame. So check out if you're looking for some college football talk with that Big East Ben. We're looking forward to the Need for Seeds coming back for another season for college basketball. See if he can go perfect, unbeaten, undefeated on the NCAA tournament again. But this is the Europa League Match Day 2 episode. Won our best bet last week. I haven't caught up on Champions League just yet this week. Still in a deep hole trying to watch all these soccer matches before the international break coming up at the end of this weekend. So into next week, which there'll be international matches, and that's been a really profitable, lucrative outfit. So certainly we'll be looking there. But on this episode, and go through Europa League. I was planning to go through Europa Conference League as well, but it's a joke at this point. I mean, the amount of teams that I've heard of is very low at this point in that competition, which is sad considering I used to really love that competition. I think it honestly has some of the more interesting matches out there. But it's the opening match day. For some reason, they're only doing 6 as opposed to the 8 that we're seeing in Champions League and Europa League. So there's more opportunity here. My Europa League episode, I went 1-0-1 on my best bets from the last episode. I put them both together for they were on different days last week, Wednesday and Thursday. So this one I'll decide, instead of doing a conference league selection because there's not anything that will be chosen there really. I'll instead do the early window, 11:45 Central Time in Dallas, Texas, where I'm recording from this late night with the real underscore G Warner, 12:45 Eastern Time in the U.S. And then also the 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central window. I'll pick a best bet from each of those time frames and put those together for an ultimate best bet coming end of show. You can find that on this YouTube feed if you're watching live right now at the real underscore G Warner. Same on Instagram and the Reels version, the 1 minute of this probably 30-minute or so episode. And of course, if you want the full episode, check me out, Betting the Pitch, on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And while you're there, leave a 5-star review. It's huge for the search rankings and will get me motivated to do more of these episodes, and hopefully before 12:29 on a Thursday morning. So now that we're in the realm, let's get into it. Hopefully I didn't just kill my feed by hiding Chrome, but if it did happen, I guess we'll figure that out later, and this will get posted on YouTube, Instagram, in the shorts version or the reels version on those two respectively, but then in full on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and of course on at the real underscore G Warner on YouTube. So Europa League 11:45 window. I'll start with Rigas Futbola Scola, which I want to say are Albanian, but they're a 1.5 goal underdog to Galatasaray, one of the biggest clubs in Turkey or Turkey. Over under here is 3.25, juiced pretty heavily to under. Galatasaray with the big kind of theft, honestly, of Victor Osimhen, who was trying to leave Napoli for 120 million euros, and that didn't come anywhere close to pass. Probably because they won the Scudetto and then had a terrible season. He barely played, holding out for more money, and then signed a new deal with the expectation that it would just cost other teams more to come in and get him. Greed is bad, unfortunately, to everyone out there. If that's one takeaway you could probably grab from this Betting the Pitch podcast network, maybe that's one of them. With that said, as I probably should plug in my iPad so it doesn't die while I'm recording this. But in terms of that, Rigas Futbol Escola, huge underdog at home. Galatasaray probably name their score here. And certainly we'll be looking, I think, forward to their Turkish Super League for their match this weekend, and might even be rotating for this competition. That is a risk that is sometimes worth taking. We saw Barcelona rotate really heavily on the road at Osasuna in La Liga play. You could argue that's a different situation entirely, but rotating on the road doesn't sound like a great idea. So I think we might see a good Galatasaray side. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they look like when they play real teams that I've heard of and can actually say what country they're representing. Moving next to Slavia Prague, or Slavia Praha, I think is their club name. They're hosting Ajax from Amsterdam. Right now, Slavia Prague actually a half a goal favorite at home. A little bit more juice on Ajax on the road. Over under is 2 3/4. Used very heavily all the way to under. Maybe we see this hit 2.5. And I actually been tracking these numbers for a little bit, so I can give an idea of kind of where this has been. It was initially at 2.5. Now we're up to 2 3/4, but very juiced at the moment, and it was even money or even better than even money. I think I saw plus 102 or plus 103 on under 2.5 at one point. So it looks like that's jockeying around that number. I can't probably tell you which number we'll get to. It doesn't look like 3 is in play here, but I'm kind of surprised. Ajax have certainly been on a downward trend trajectory for years. It's nice to see them in Europa League because that looked like it was a big time danger for them. Sacking managers and sporting directors and all these things. I think I actually met their sporting director who was sacked when he was working for Stuttgart in when they played a match day or just an exhibition in Austin before the World Cup that happened in a blood money territory. But I think Slavia Prague, I mean, to me, I saw them live against Roma last season in Stadio Olimpico, and they went on the road and were very defensive. That is my similar takeaway or thinking towards thought process towards Slavia Prague. I think they're going to be a defensive side, which is a little bit awkward to see them favored to Ajax. I'll trust the market here because I have been pretty down on Ajax and I miss the days of just betting against Ajax blindly because it not completely blindly, but you could argue I had my hands over my eyes because pretty much Ajax were favored and didn't deserve to be every match they played, especially on a European stage. Clearly, big reset here to be a half a goal underdog, even at the Czech champions, or I guess that would be Sparta Prague, I believe, instead of Slavia Prague. But one of the big clubs in the big city in Czechia. I just think at this point, I'm very interested to see the result in this one. Probably no play for me on this one, but I do like under 2 3/4 as one of the possible selections for this early window of the ultimate best bet coming up end of show. If I could find my mouse, I think it's somehow on the iPad. I don't want it to be there. It won't be on this screen. Thank you. And so that's I'll put that down. I guess that does back the Ajax defense a little bit and means that it won't be an out of control up and down match. I feel like Ajax have been playing for years. But I think I'm willing to say that and kind of put my neck out there on under 2 3/4 in that matchup. Move next to Karabag hosting Malmo. Currently, Karabag a half a goal favorite at home. Almost all the juice on Malmo on the road. Over under is 2 3/4. Juice slightly more to over, or a little bit more to over. Malmo seems to me like a better club. Karabag, they've been in this European competition or in various ones. I know they were, I think, in the same group with Sport Club Freiburg from the German Bundesliga for a couple seasons, or at least had one season with them, I know for sure. They've been around competitions, and that's a good sign they keep getting there. But biggest club in Azerbaijan, or let's see where Karabag is actually. I might as well I'll learn something today. I think it's Azerbaijan, but Karabakh is in Azerbaijan. Yes, they are in Karabakh. I guess that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, Gurban Gurbanov, very original name there. He's running the team, and I feel like Malmo. I mean, to me, I wasn't expecting to be a half goal underdog, go on the road to Azerbaijan and get a draw, and you win a full bet. That feels like a worthwhile, I guess, play right there. So I'll put Malmo getting a half of a goal on my list. I don't really have a great feel for the total in this one, as it is a little bit beyond my top 5 European soccer leagues purview. As you see, Roma on a scarf in the background and Olympique Lyonnais on my shirt right now. We'll move next to Olympiacos hosting Sporting Braga. Currently, Olympiacos Piraeus from Athens are a quarter goal favorite at home. Total is 2.5. Juices split both ways in the total. And Olympiacos actually extremely juiced right now. Looks like they might even climb to a half of a goal. I don't think I've seen that since tracking this number, but I can tell you that as I look at it. Yeah, it looks like this number has barely budged from the quarter of a goal, juiced all the way. And Sporting Braga, a good side from Portugal, played in Champions League fairly recently within the last couple seasons. And I feel like La Liga Portugal does a really great job, or the Liga Portugal. I guess they don't want to say La Liga. I'm sure La Liga will sue because I know they're very active with their litigious nature on Twitter. If you, God forbid, use the wrong GIF that has any sort of a Liga content on it. It's amazing that Twitter makes that available, but that's a different probably debate for Elon Musk and his 15 children. I think Olympiacos, to me, I mean, they brought in Jose Luis Mendilibar, who is a kind of a castaway, relegation fighting, promoted club managing guy in La Liga. And then he moved to Sevilla, won Europa League because Sevilla were dominating every competition. Well, actually, just dominating Europa League, getting dominated in all the other competitions, and since have really fallen apart. And so that Sevilla Europa League magic doesn't have them in this competition. But Mendilibar ended up moving to Olympiacos and made a deep run to the final. I think even took home a trophy last season. Incredible run for him and really kind of unexpected. Yes, Olympiacos, they have a lot of money for a Greek market that's not, or a Greek Super League that's not dominant on an international stage, nor is the Greek national team, but they've got some decent names. Feels like some cast-offs from, I mean, Daniel Podence from Wolverhampton Wanderers of the English Premier League has gone to Olympiacos in the past. I am a little surprised to see them a favorite here. I feel like the Europa League is just loving the home teams and giving them a lot of respect. That's dangerous for me because I do love backing road teams because I'm pretty much an underdog and under player in this competition. And I think both those work in the same direction. Sporting Braga, not that impressive of an offense, but I do think the Portuguese league, La Liga Portugal, their talent, I think, is just it's not undiscovered because half of them go to play for Wolverhampton Wanderers at one point. But I think it is undervalued or underrated on this type of level, especially in the Europa League where they're not facing one of the biggest clubs in the world. Olympiacos certainly a big club and huge in Greece, but on a continental stage across Europe, I'm not sure it's that gigantic dominant or anything in that direction. So I'm interested in Sporting Braga again, that quarter of a goal. Would love to see this climb to a half before kickoff. We might see that happen. I also like under 2.5 in that matchup as well, as I just don't, I think it's all pointing towards betting a Portuguese side, which are usually pretty conservative, but have good, talented players that can create offense from pretty little, and they sit in and try to defend, and that's going to be their strategy away from home. I'll move next to Maccabi Tel Aviv hosting Midtjylland. Currently, Maccabi Tel Aviv, a quarter goal underdog at home, which I can't imagine they're playing any matches in Israel at this point. So I can probably see where this match is being played. It's probably worth it since this is the Betting Pitch Europa League podcast, episode 2, 1-0-1. So a perfect undefeated start to Europa League podcast. And I've always been very surprised at how much people actually care for Europa League podcasts compared to Champions League. I would think it'd be a completely different story. And it's the fact that it's even close. And I think Europa League edges it in terms of views is amazing to me, but keep them coming. And maybe it's just putting Europa in the title, and maybe that's something I should do for Champions League. But it's enough to, I guess, get people on board. Anyway, I was looking at Michelin while I was talking. That was my point here. So Michelin, I believe they are Danish. Yes, they are. They are in Herning and Ikast in Jutland, wherever that is. But they are playing Maccabi Tel Aviv, and they are playing in, let's see, in the Partizan Stadium, which I gotta say is probably in Belgrade. Yes, they're playing in Belgrade, Serbia. Interesting. I guess that will be the home for Maccabi Tel Aviv. Maybe. I don't really know what the Israeli league is doing. They're not a top 5 European soccer league, and there's certainly arguments for whether Israel should be a country, but I'm not getting to that. And whether Israel should be in UEFA, that's probably even more debatable. But I do feel like Michelin, I mean, they've been in this competition. They've certainly been in Champions League in years past. One of those minnows in that competition, but Europa League probably fits them a lot better. And with this new Swiss system, you got to finish top 8. Everyone's going for wins. I would think as the quote unquote road team that with no real home team in Belgrade, Serbia, I think this is a great spot for Michelin. And I don't really have a feel for the total, so it's probably one that I stay away from, as I'm just not really that well versed in the Israeli Maccabi Tel Aviv squad. Moving next to Ferencváros hosting Tottenham. Currently, Ferencváros a 1.25 goal underdog, which is about split both ways. Over under is 3, just really heavily to over, and it should be because that's how Tottenham play. They don't ever. I mean, even against the best teams in the world, they still play an extremely high line. This might actually work out a little bit better for them, though, going on the road to Budapest. I think Ferencváros, every time I've seen them on an international stage, usually it's against the bigger clubs, of course, but they're usually playing defensively and trying to keep the match as low scoring as possible. That does go or fly potentially in the face of an over under at a full 3. It's probably the highest total I've seen with Ferencvaros in a long time. But to that end, Tottenham are going to really squeeze the life out of Ferencvaros, especially if they're going to sit back in their own end. So the options are Ferencvaros will push out and leave themselves more vulnerable, or they will simply let Tottenham just box them into their own 18-yard box, and then they'll just be taking cannon fire for the entire match. That might be enough to stay under 3, and certainly will be a better situation for Ferencvaros than playing an open game, getting a goal and a quarter at home. But while I do like that number, I think if you are playing a 1 and a quarter, I think you're going to probably expect Ferencvaros not to really have much luck scoring. So you might want to just play under 3 in that matchup. A couple more matches in this 12:45 window, actually 3 of them. Lazio hosts Nice. Currently, Lazio a half a goal favorite at home with more juice on Nice on the road. Over under is 2 and a quarter. Juice very heavily to over. Now, Lazio brought in kind of what to me felt like a Jose Luis Mendilibar for their manager, though things have been going pretty well besides their 2 penalties conceded and a loss on the road at Fiorentina a couple weeks ago, or 2 Sundays ago, I think it was. They've been scoring goals, had a good win last weekend in Serie A, and now they get Nice to come in. And Nice, pretty tough start to their Europa League campaign, but I guess get the tough games out of the way early. I think they went to Real Sociedad last week, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe they hosted them. Anyway, Nice, half a goal underdog, I think is probably fair just based on how well Lazio have played. Big club playing at the Stadio Olimpico in Rome. That's a problem for Nice to probably go in there and try to dominate this game, coming off a pretty competitive, as I about to sneeze. Sorry if that deafened anyone. Please don't sue me. I think the biggest interest for me in this one is in backing the Nice defense and playing under 2 and a quarter. I've been pretty disappointed with the Nice offense so far this season, coming off a double clean sheet with a goalless match on the road at Lens. Was a pretty good result for Nice, and this is going to be another big test. I guess another big crowd, though you could probably argue that Lens, the sang et or, the blood and gold, is probably one of the biggest home field advantages across Europe. Home pitch advantage, maybe the better way to say it. Lazio certainly is no slouch. Probably a little bit weaker of a crowd than Roma, but I mean, that's probably a little bit. I mean, I do have a Roma scarf behind me, I guess. I'm not really a Roma fan. I don't think. I just tend to root for them a lot because I feel like they're generally undervalued. With that said, I think biggest interest in this one is in that Nice under 2 and a quarter. 2 more matches. We got Hoffenheim hosting Dynamo Kyiv. Hoffenheim a half a goal favorite at home with almost all the juice on Dynamo Kyiv on the road. Over under is 3, and it's juiced very heavily to under. So Hoffenheim don't have much of a home field advantage, but have been pretty bad away from home, have been conceding a ton of goals, and none of those things go in the right direction for wanting to back a favorite at home, nor an under. Dynamo Kyiv on the other side, though, they are another Ukrainian side similar to the Israelis we talked about in Maccabi Tel Aviv, or at least Israeli-based club that is playing all their matches, I think, in Hamburg, Germany, or in Veltins Arena, or something like that. Maybe that's Shakhtar, their other country mate, I guess, countrymen or country club. It's probably not the same thing. Anyway, Dynamo Kyiv, I mean, they seem to build. I mean, they're certainly not at the level of Shakhtar Donetsk, at least haven't been for a few years. I feel like they're are kind of like a young team that is trying to build in a certain direction that hasn't really shown too much. So this is a great spot for a lot of drama behind the scenes at Hoffenheim to maybe go in the correct direction, in the winning positive direction, especially after Hoffenheim were able to go on the road and get a draw last weekend, I believe at Michelin in Denmark, with a late equalizer from the guy I'd never heard of, which is saying something because I've been following the Bundesliga about as closely as any sport league in the world in the last 5 seasons. With that said, I think I'm looking to bet against Hoffenheim in this competition. I don't think this is the time to do it. I don't think Dynamo Kyiv is good enough, and I don't really want to play unders with Hoffenheim because they can score goals and they don't defend. Last but not least, in this early window, Real Sociedad hosts Anderlecht from Belgium. Currently, Sociedad a 1-goal favorite at home. All the juice on Anderlecht on the road. Over under is 2.5, and it's just pretty heavily to under. But we haven't seen a Real Sociedad total above 2 in a long time. They were 2 last week in this competition. I think they were on the road at Roma, and ended up taking a lead, but conceded, ended up with a 1-1 draw. No harm, no foul, and left the competition with 1 point. Let me just make sure who they played, because I did see their match this weekend against Valencia, which was no scoring at all until Valencia started to really go for it and make some big mistakes. So that was a match. Real Sociedad ended up going on the road to Nice in the opener, 1-1 there. Nice equalized, and then no scoring for like an entire second half. Anyway, Anderlecht certainly going to go in and try to defend, I suspect. I don't think that they're going to have trouble doing that. I still don't believe in Real Sociedad, even after getting 2 breakaway goals, essentially. Like, I think they had a 3-0 in stoppage time to kill it under 2, which was brutal, but I think it was my 21st. And I'm not even caught up on matches yet, but 21st stoppage time loss of the season already. Incredible. Don't think I've had 100 losses yet across all the bets I've been making, but 20% of them, more than that, have been in stoppage time. Just unbelievably brutal. But I think Anderlecht go in to defend, and I'm very interested in seeing and basically betting to continue to bet that Real Sociedad are not able to score goals, and we haven't seen a 2.5 in a very long time. For my best bet from that 11:45 window, which I will then push into the ultimate best bet end of show, I'm going to stay in that Real Sociedad Anderlecht match. Last on the list, but first in our hearts, or first on our betting tickets. I'll go Anderlecht under 2.5 goals to my best bet in that 11:45 early window. Recording this late night on, I guess, early morning hours, wee hours of Thursday, October 3rd. And please hit that follow button at the real_G Warner across all social media platforms if you're looking for some gambling content. Moving next to Rangers hosting Lyon, as I wear their practice kit from 2019 or something like that. Rangers from Scotland always get a ton of bets and are usually overvalued, I think, in the continental markets, because there's a lot of money that bets soccer in the UK. Pounds worth a lot, I think, as well. Rangers a pick 'em right now with almost all the juice over unders 2 3/4. Juices split both ways, so no real indicator on which direction this will go. Lyon rotated a fair amount for their match last weekend. Toulouse fell behind, but ended up equalizing and taking a late winner. Big deal for Lyon, who have all the history in the world, and quietly got Wilfried Zaha to now who started this past weekend. There's a lot of talent on Lyon, as always, and they've done a good job of kind of bringing back the prodigal sons have returned that have left Lyon for greener pastures and things didn't work out perfectly. Saïd Benrahma has come back. George Mikitadze, the Georgian, has come back, or at least I know Mikitadze was in the youth system. I'm not sure necessarily about Saïd Benrahma. But with that said, Lacazette has come back, returned from Arsenal after he got too old for them. I'm pretty interested in Lyon. I'm wearing the shirt, of course, so take that with a grain of salt. But I've been betting against Lyon for a lot of last season, especially when they're bottom of Ligue 1 or Ligue 1 for a long time in France. Rangers, I mean, big crowd. Certainly they travel very well and should be a really tough environment for Lyon. But I'll be waiting to see this one hit a quarter of a goal underdog. I don't know that I want to play under, which does make me and kind of limit my interest in Lyon as a road underdog, because I don't really think it's a low scoring game necessarily. But Lyon has all the talent, just putting it together, and that's a big question. It's been a question for a long time. I'll move next to PAOK hosting FCSB. Currently PAOK a 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice over unders 2 3/4. She's pretty heavily to under. I was pretty close to betting PAOK on the road last weekend, and I thought their defense was really good early. I don't have a lot of insight in FCSB. I think they're Romanian, and weird that they'd have a 4-letter abbreviated word against another 4-letter abbreviated word, but I guess no one's using FCSB. PAOK is pretty unique, but I don't think I have a pick on that one. So I'll move on to the next, and that is FC Porto hosting Manchester United. Porto, very juiced right now at Pick'em, and this has been completely flipped from Manchester United as initially a favorite. At least the juice is pointing that direction at Pick'em. Maybe Porto are moving to a quarter goal favorite. Maybe at that point there's some Manchester United money, or maybe it won't even get there because there's enough Manchester United money that blindly will bet a team that's been a sieve for many seasons now. Total here is 2 3/4. She's really heavily to under. Porto always have talent. They did sell Taremi, their Iranian striker, to Inter, and we'll see how they are able to fill that void. But Porto's defense is always something I trust. My biggest interest in this one is definitely Manchester United under 2 3/4, because these totals are always too high. Manchester United's offense is never, ever really capable of delivering a punch. Moving next to Besiktas hosting Eintracht Frankfurt, a big trip for the Germans, who have a lot of talent, but this is going to be a tough one on the road in front of a huge Turkish environment. Certainly, the Bundesliga has prepared them pretty well. Went on the road to Kiel this past weekend, and things went well. But they did capitulate in their match at home against Victoria Plzeň, the Czechia side, last week. And this is a big deal for them to not let 3 points escape them. They're a slight favorite. Pick them right now. All the juice on Eintracht Frankfurt. We might see this move to a quarter of a goal. At that point, I think I'm more interested in Besiktas. Over-under here is 3, just really heavily to under. And I got to say, big totals. That one went over clearly. They were up 3-1 and gave up 2 late goals. I think both in stoppage time were pretty close to it against a Czech side that was really great defensively. I think we found, or at least I've found, that Eintracht Frankfurt in this competition, they look like an over club, and that doesn't really fit my style very well. Moving next to Elfsborg hosting Roma, as I have a scarf in the background. Not really a scarf guy, but thought a friend of mine left it, but I guess Francis, because he's a Juve fan, didn't want anything to do with it, so I took it with me thinking I'd give it back to him, and he's like, no, I don't want it, so I guess it's mine now. Anyway, that's the behind the music. Elfsborg, a half a goal underdog at home right now. Roma with all the juice might climb to 3/4 of a goal. I think it's been there. Over under is 2 3/4. Juice is split both ways. Roma with a big comeback victory on the I think at home actually against Venezia. That was a big surprise. Fell behind early. Johan Palo, the Finn, scored, and then Roma were able to get a huge deflection for a goal, and of course got another one to win. I think there's still problems with clearly within the structure of the club. CEO resigning after the sacking of a very popular Daniel De Rossi after only a few weeks into the season, a few jornadas. I don't know if that's really impacting things here. We'll see if Ivan Juric in his style, I think, which works very well for less talented teams in Roma. I'm not really sure how well it will do at a big club, a giant like Roma, but certainly a good spot for him because it's the biggest club he's ever managed from what I can understand. And Elfsborg should be an easy trip for them, at least a team they should beat. But it's always tough to trust teams like Roma and just anyone when they go on the road, especially as a road favorite. Moving next to Athletic Club Bilbao hosting AZ Alkmaar from the Eredivisie in Holland. Currently, Athletic Club a 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice. Over unders 2 3/4, all the way juice to under. So this might see a climb to Athletic Club, a full goal favorite with a total maybe falling to 2.5. Those things kind of go in opposite directions, but I think Athletic Club at San Mamés especially, they're loving Europa League football or any sort of European competition. They haven't had it in so long. And AZ, I think, are going to be one of those Eredivisie side that goes to one of the top 5 European soccer leagues, just like FC Twente did last week, and they went and drew Manchester United in a very low scoring game. I think we see the same strategy from AZ. I like under 2 3/4 in this matchup. Move next is Union Saint-Gilloise from Belgium hosting Bodo Glimt from Norway, I want to say. Saint-Gilloise, a half a goal favorite at home in Brussels. Over under is 2 3/4, just all the way to over. And there's a lot of juice right now on the Bodo Glimt side as well. Union Saint-Gilloise, they are a selling club, of course, in Belgium. That makes sense. They don't have a huge money. I guess though Bruges would probably argue differently. But Union Saint-Gilloise have put incredible player. I mean, they put their manager, Alexander Blessing, at San Pauli. This season, they put Boniface, a striker, starting in a undefeated, almost invincible side in Bayer Leverkusen last season. There's a lot of talent there. I trust their picking of players and how they're doing it. Half a goal favorite feels a little expensive because Bodo Glimt is pretty good. Always around these European competitions as well, I guess, as are Union Saint-Gilloise at this point. But feels like a match I want to watch. And I think I actually leaned, what's up, Joe Dollar? I think I leaned over 2 3/4 in this one. It's pretty juiced at the moment. I think under 3, though, there is some value there. So it's a shock and awe. Bodo Glimt over 2 3/4 is my biggest interest in that matchup. Moving next to Victoria Plzeň hosting Ludogorets. Victoria Plzeň, who were incredible defensively in Europa Conference League last season, but it was a much stronger Europa Conference League at that point, but hard to really compare it to Europa League, I guess. I thought they played a defensive brand against Frankfurt last Thursday. but really struggled with the talent of Eintracht Frankfurt, which a lot of teams, even the German Bundesliga, do. I don't know that Ludogorets are the same type of story here, though Victoria Plzen feels like a pretty big favorite. They didn't really get a lot of respect from the marketplace last season. Were great at really preventing goals, and it was a huge reason why Victoria Plzen went pretty deep in the competition. I think my biggest interest here is under 2.5. Just potentially a bet on Victoria Plzen's defense and against their offense, even at home. And last but not least, we have FC Twente hosting Fenerbahce from Turkey. This one's moved from Fenerbahce being a pick'em with more juice to now Fenerbahce a quarter goal favorite on the road. All the juice right now is currently on Twente, but it probably should be that way. Over under is 3, and it is very juiced to under. It kind of goes different directions. I usually look to overs with Turkish clubs. I just don't feel that their defenses are ever really play well on a continental stage. But I did watch Twente play pretty defensively on the road at Manchester United and look very competent in that. I think my biggest interest in this matchup is Twente getting a quarter of a goal, but I also like that under 3 for this, I guess, last match that we're going to go on this Betting the Pitch podcast covering the Europa League match day 2. So with that said, it's time to get the ultimate best bet. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. I'll see if that hopefully didn't kill what I was recording. I did just let's see if I brought this back up. If I guess it seems like we're still counting, so maybe that worked. That was a good job of taking it off the screen, so I can stare at betting lines and talk about them live. With that said, I think it's time to get the ultimate best bet. We have a NFL Week 5 college. There's a college football podcast at pregame that I did with that Big East Ben. NFL podcast on this feed. If you're not subscribed to it, do it at the _G Warner on Instagram and on YouTube. If you are not subscribed to the Spotify, 5-star reviews are also key there, plus on Apple Podcasts as well. Wherever you get your podcast, check this out. It's either Betting the Pitch or at the _G Warner on all those platforms. Go get as much as you can out of me and out of us, because we're coming at you with winners. NFL's got off to a great start. We were, I think, 5-1 until last week. Unfortunately, took an 0-2, so we're 5-3 on the season, but still profitable. College football's been better. We had a all green week last week, as you'd see at Big East Ben on his Twitter timeline, puts out a graphic of all our picks from the best bets from the games we cover. And we were both perfect, which was pretty incredible. Might not see that again, but thank you for everyone coming in. If you got something you'd like to ask, feel free, as I'm about to get into ultimate best bets to wrap this baby up. But until then, I guess I'm not sure if I got anything more to plug other than if you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out. Patreon.com/real_G Warner. Had a huge baseball day today. It was almost perfect. If not for some late 8th inning drama, unfortunately, the bullpens from the Mets that blew a game, and they might get eliminated now. You never know with a winner take all game 3. Plus the unfortunate situation with the Padres. They did cover this. I guess they didn't win, so that money line play came through as a 3-star triple best bet on pregame.com. But the late home run was not great in the 8th inning from Jason Adam, of all people. He's not a huge fan of homosexuals, unfortunately, and needs to maybe not be a bigot. Maybe that would help keep the ball in the yard. You never know. But that big God guy, he could have used a little bit more help from the father or whoever he's praying to, probably the father, based on the cross he had on his neck. He probably was biting as he watched the fly ball go over the center field wall. But not great for the push on under 7 in that situation. But at least the Padres were able to hang on. Not much help from him, though, unfortunately. For the ultimate best bet for the 1400 hour or the Central Time start time for the late window, I'm going to go that Manchester United under 2 3/4. And now that brings us to the ultimate best bet, which thank you for sticking around for that. We've done 33 minutes. It's now 12:59 a.m. on Thursday, October 3rd. And it's time to get into the ultimate best bet. So let's do it. Hey, this is the real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet from the Europa League Matchday 2 edition. We're undefeated so far in the season, 1-0-1 from our best bet selections, and the ultimate best bet from Matchday 1 did win. That was a under, which we do have a couple unders on this list. I was under Athletic Club Bilbao under 2.25 goals on the road at Roma. For this October 3rd episode, I went through all the matches on the Europa League calendar. You can find that Betting the Pitch on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Of course, at the real_G Warner, where you're watching this, on Instagram or on YouTube. There are full podcast is available on YouTube, not on Instagram because there's a time limit. But check out the feed for plenty of great stuff. On this podcast, we're going for the early window, Anderlecht under 2.5 goals, and in the late window, going Manchester United under 2.75. But for the ultimate best bet on this episode, I'm going to go with Manchester United at Porto under 2.75 goals. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see everyone for tomorrow's podcast. And we'll go through the top 5 European soccer leagues. Tomorrow, now being Thursday, will be Friday, getting through the last weekend before we go into another big international break. And don't worry, see if there's enough interest in doing a podcast for the international break, because there was a lot of money to be made while I was in France the last time, and looking forward to doing that yet again. Please make sure, if you're not subscribed, do at the real underscore G Warner, at Betting the Pitch, depending where you're watching or listening. Got any comments, quotes, feedback, at the real underscore G Warner on Twitter is probably the best place to get me, but feel free to check out Patreon as well, patreon.com. So that's the real underscore G Warner.